Good morning. Well, again, good morning on this first day where we are not saving daylight time. So if you're blurry-eyed from this change of time, don't fear, because we're going to keep your full attention with great music, readings, and Reverend Karen's message. Well, we welcome all of you here at the fellowship on Zoom, and for some later in the archives. So we're glad to be with you for another day of reflection and introspection. I'm Dave Bianchi, your worship associate, and I'm really looking forward to this service today. So if you're new to us, you know that we are a welcoming community and that we care deeply for all people, regardless of racial identity, age, economic circumstances, immigration status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Our mission is to grow together in love, faith, justice, and joy. Mass here at the fellowship are optional, so we will respect one another's decision about face coverings and social distancing. Those of you on Zoom will remain muted during the service, but you can put comments in the chat box. And there will be coffee time on Zoom following the service to say hello to one another and enjoy one another's company and conversation. So no matter where you are today, sit back and enjoy, and thank you for being with us, and welcome once again. And now we have an opportunity to greet one another, and when the time's up, as you walk around with either a fist bump, an elbow bump, a hug, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm going to ring this singing bell so you'll know when to come back to your seats.
Remember that? Yeah. Children's benediction? Yeah. Where's that? Where'd it go?
We come into this space together this morning, as we do each and every Sunday morning, for some moments out of time, a time out of time to set aside, to be quieter, reflective, introspection. Perhaps we are concerned or worried or fearful about some things happening out there over the next couple of days or so. And so we come into this space today to prepare, to come fully present to what is possible. And we let our imaginations bring us healing and connection. And so the invitation is ours this morning. May the music wash over you as a river. May the words touch your heart. May the connections you make today touch your deepest hunger. This time is ours to have what we each need to do the things that we are called to do. I'm going to invite Grayson to light our chalice for us this morning. As I offer these chalice lighting words. Whether you're from the south or the east or the north or the west, whether you were born into this faith, found it, or it found you, whether you feel at home or are still trying to find your place, whether you believe in God, are open to a mystery, or still have no idea. Whether you're unemployed, underemployed, cobbling things together, overworking, or in school. Whether you're holding anxiety, grief, confusion, anger, hope, restlessness, or deep peace. There is a place for you, and it is right here. And this chalice has been lit for each of us. There is a river that flows within and among all of us. And you are welcome to rise in body or spirit, stay in your seat, move however you want to. The invitation is yours.
In the mountains and the valleys and the meadows of time. Yes, it is a sweet song of love that sweetens the lives of everyone. And it sweetens the mountains and the valleys and the meadows of time. Yes, it do. And there's a voice from the past that speaks to the lives of everyone. mountains and the valleys and the meadows of time. There's a smile in your eyes that shines through the lives of everyone, and it shines through the mountains and the valleys and the meadows of time. Yes, it do. Yes, it do. Oh, yes, it do. Oh, yes, it do. Oh, yes, it do. Yes, it do. Oh, 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 yes, it do. Yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, oh, yes, you do. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, 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 there's a river somewhere. Yes, there's a flows through the light. Yes, there's a river somewhere that flows through the light, and it flows through the mountains and the valleys and the meadows of time. Yes, it flows.
The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, through the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, through their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voice behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life that you could save.
Can we start that again, please?
Well, this is a time of the service when we offer our bounties with each other to continue the positive and far-reaching outreach to our fellowship and the greater community. A basket will be circulated for those of us here. Those of you on Zoom or even you here can text 73256, putting UUFNN in the message box and hit send. You can also mail a check here at the office, 780 Del Monte Lane, Reno, Nevada, 89511. Or better yet, sign up for automatic giving. There's a couple of different ways to do it, so contact the office and Carol will explain the process. It's a simple and convenient way to give. Now each month, we select a different local nonprofit to share our plate. And this month, we are donating to Urban Roots. Now, the mission of this organization is to change the way communities eat and learn through hands-on gardening education. Urban Roots prioritizes historically marginalized populations by targeting Title I schools and nonprofits that serve vulnerable communities, including Native American populations, Head Start, and homeless residents. Some of the offerings include field trips for Washoe County schools and farm camps for children 5 to 15, workshops for adults to help them become more confident in their gardening abilities. Maybe we should take that, Lois. Gardening for All, where custom gardens are built and brought to family homes, schools, and neighborhoods to provide gardening education on site. Renowned Hospital's Prescription Pantry provides produce to pantry, which allow doctors to write prescriptions for healthy food for patients. Teaching Kitchen. The kitchen allows Urban Roots to provide seed-to-table experience for anyone who comes to the farm. Learners can plant seeds, harvest produce, and cook the food in the kitchen. So our generosity will help enhance that kitchen with teaching space and restroom appliances, tables, and teaching materials. Also, many students receive scholarships to defray costs, and our gifts will contribute to that fund as well. So if you're texting, you can option a direct donation to the fellowship or to the designated nonprofit. So we thank you for your generosity. Will the ushers please come forward? Will you please join David and me as we bless our offerings to the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. We dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
So are we all feeling completely rested after that extra hour of sleep we got last night? I want you to remember that at 5 o'clock today when it's dark. Our current theme and what we're trying to explore together is nurturing our connections, and we're looking at that in a number of different ways. Nurturing our connections with community, nurturing our connections with spirit, nurturing our connection with self. And so today and next week, that's what we're about. It's talking a little bit about nurturing that connection with self. I think of this as deeply spiritual work, and I think that we are called to do our personal work. Whatever is going on out there that we're concerned about, it really starts in here for how we deal with it and what we're able to do with what's happening out there. Are you with me so far? So we do this work to nurture our healing path. It's a path to more joy and health, more self-acceptance, more connection. In short, it's an inside job. We cannot be more connected to other people than we are to ourselves. And so it's essential that we do this work, and it really is, I think, lifelong work. There's not a destination, there's not finished. There's just a continuation of paying attention, being aware, doing the work, doing better with ourselves as we know better. And it's not narcissistic, it's not belly button gazing, it's awareness. It's doing the work of awareness so that we can focus and really give ourselves to others. It's intellectual work, and we have to understand the concepts. It's heart work, it's soul work, it's work of the spirit, it's life-saving work. As Mary Oliver tells us, sometimes we have to make the choice to save the only life we really can save, which is our own, which is really what this work is about. And so today I want to focus on something that can be a barrier to healthy self-esteem. It can be a stumbling block and stymie us on our path to discovering more serenity and joy, and it's something that we don't want to talk about. I'll just put that right out there. It's our relationship to shame and guilt. Now, how many folks are just dying to talk about that today? That's what I thought. So it's my job to take us there just every now and then. The ways that we interact with shame and guilt and the ways they manifest and live in our lives have a huge impact. And so I want to offer, as we begin, a couple of definitions. What's the difference between guilt and shame? Aren't they the same thing? I don't think they're the same thing. Guilt is an emotion that arises after a behavior that was an error or a mistake or a missed opportunity to do a right behavior. Okay? Shame is when we feel negative feelings toward our personhood and who we are at our core. Does that make sense? Are you with me so far? Guilt is about behavior. Shame is about personhood, who we are. Guilt can be motivating. Guilt can even be healthy if it's kept in perspective. And that would be guilt that arises from ourselves, not that put upon us by others. There's a little shade of difference there. Guilt can even be healthy, especially with some grace mixed in. Making mistakes, errors in judgment, wrong action, lacking action, all part of the human experience, all part of this human journey called life. It's what we do with those experiences that really matters. It's how we use them for our growth. Shame, on the other hand, can be debilitating, paralyzing, and it can have a drastic negative impact because it affects how we see ourselves at our core. This is something that I have really tried to pay attention to as a parent. And we might think about those messages that we got when we're coming up. With a parent, with correction and guidance and consequences, it's really important to address the behavior rather than the person. Consequences and learning from our mistakes are all about the action, the behavior, not who we are. And there's a difference, and there's ways that we hopefully learn how to and how not to speak with our children about this, because when we address the behavior, it induces guilt, hopefully learning and a change in behavior. When we induce shame, it's damaging. It's damaging to our emotions, to who we are at our core. And so all of us, with each other and with ourselves, it's important to be aware to address the behaviors. We can change behavior. We can address, we can make amends. So when we, in our relationships with each other, just like with parents, it's important to remember that if we need to confront somebody about something, we confront behaviors, specific actions, not who somebody is at their core, because that's really none of our business. The only way that we want to address who somebody is at their core is to lift people up, to recognize that you are strong, you are wise, you have what it takes to do what you need to do. Our job in addressing who we are is to build one another up and not ever induce shame with one another. So what shame does is it kicks off at its most effective and most damaging is that not enough cycle. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not lovable enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not safe enough. I'm not doing enough. And it winds up at, so therefore I am not enough. So shame on steroids gets us to that absolute terror, and it is terror, which is we are not enough. We might not be enough. I'm drawing heavily today on the work of Dr. Brene Brown, who's one of my personal heroes and geniuses, I think, on this topic and some topics related to it. And whenever I know that somebody can say something better than I can, I just soon let them say it. So, Dr. Brene Brown.
You can only imagine what it's like for me in a faculty meeting. So, when I became Vulnerability Ted, like an action figure, like Ninja Barbie, but I'm Vulnerability Ted, I thought I'm going to leave that shame stuff behind because I spent 6 years studying shame before I really started writing and talking about vulnerability. And I thought, thank God, because I learned about these things from studying shame. And so I want to walk you in to shame. Jungian analysts call shame the swampland of the soul. And we're going to walk in, and the purpose is not to walk in and, construct a home and live there. It is to put on some galoshes and walk through and find our way around. Here's why. We heard the most compelling call ever to have a conversation in this country, and I think globally, around race, right? Yes, we heard that. Yes? Cannot have that conversation without shame. Because you cannot talk about race without talking about privilege, and when people start talking about privilege, they get paralyzed by shame. We heard a brilliant, simple solution to not killing people in surgery, which is have a checklist. You can't fix that problem without addressing shame, because when they teach those folks how to suture, they also teach them how to stitch their self-worth to being all-powerful. And all-powerful folks don't need checklists. And I had to write down the name of this TED Fellow so I didn't mess it up here. Mishkin Ingawale. I hope I did right by you. I saw the TED Fellows my first day here, and he got up and he explained how he was driven to create some technology to help test for anemia because people were dying unnecessarily. And he said, I saw this need, so you know what I did? I made it. And everybody just burst into applause, and they were like, yes! And he said, and it didn't work. And then I made it 32 more times. And then it worked. You know what the big secret about TED is? I can't wait to tell people this. I guess I'm doing it right now. This is like the failure concept. And no one that gets on the stage so far that I've seen has not failed. I have failed miserably. Many times. I don't think the world understands that because of shame. There's a great quote that saved me this past year by Theodore Roosevelt. A lot of people refer to it as the man in the arena quote. And it goes like this. It is not the critic who counts. It is not the man who sits and points out how the doer of deeds could have done things better and how he falls and stumbles. The credit goes to the man in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and blood and sweat. But when he's in the arena at best, he wins, and at worst he loses. But when he fails, when he loses, he does so daring greatly. And that's what this conference to me is about. That's what life is about daring greatly, about being in the arena. When you walk up to that arena and you put your hand on the door and you think, I'm going in and I'm going to try this, shame is the gremlin who says, you're not good enough. You never finished that MBA. Your wife left you. I know your dad really wasn't in Luxembourg, he was in Sing Sing. I know there's things that happened to you growing up. I know you don't think that you're pretty enough or smart enough or talented enough or powerful enough. I know your dad never paid attention even when you made CFO. Shame is that thing. And then if we can quiet it down and walk in and say, I'm gonna do this, we look up and the critic that we see pointing and laughing, 99% of the time is who? Us. Shame drives two big tapes, never good enough, and if you can talk it out of that one, who do you think you are? The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt. Shame is a focus on self, guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is I am bad, guilt is I did something bad. How many of you, if you did something that was hurtful to me, would be willing to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake? How many of you would be willing to say that? Guilt. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Shame. I'm sorry, I am a mistake. There is a huge difference between shame and guilt. And here's what you need to know. Shame is highly, highly correlated with addiction, depression, violence, aggression, bullying, suicide, eating disorders. And here's what you even need to know more. Guilt, inversely correlated with those things. The ability to hold something we've done or failed to do up against who we want to be is incredibly adaptive. It's uncomfortable, but it's adaptive. The other thing you need to know about shame is it's absolutely organized by gender. If shame washes over me and washes over Chris, it's going to feel the same. Everyone sitting in here knows the warm wash of shame. We're pretty sure that the only people who don't experience shame are people who have no capacity for connection or empathy. Which means, yes, I have a little shame, no, I'm a sociopath. So I would opt for yes, you have a little shame. Shame feels the same for men and women, but it's organized by gender. For women, the best example I can give you is Anjali, the commercial. I can put the wash on the line, pack the lunches, hand out the kisses, and be work at 5 to 9. I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and never let you forget you're a man. For women, shame is do it all, do it perfectly, and never let them see you sweat. I don't know how much perfume that commercial sold, but I guarantee you it moved a lot of antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. Shame for women is this web of unattainable, conflicting, competing expectations about who we're supposed to be. And it's a straitjacket. For men, shame is not a bunch of competing, conflicting expectations. Shame is one. Do not be perceived as what? Weak. I did not interview men for the first 4 years of my study. And it wasn't until a man looked at me one day after a book signing and said, I love what you have to say about shame. I'm curious why you didn't mention men. And I said, I don't study men. And he said, that's convenient. And I said, why? And he said, because you say to reach out, tell our story, be vulnerable. But you see those books you just signed for my wife and my 3 daughters? I said, yeah. They'd rather me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall down. When we reach out and be vulnerable, we get the shit beat out of us. And don't tell me it's from the guys and the coaches and the dads. Because the women in my life are harder on me than anyone else. So I started interviewing men and asking questions. And what I learned is this. You show me a woman who can actually sit with a man in real vulnerability and fear, I'll show you a woman who's done incredible work. You show me a man who can sit with a woman who's just had it. She can't do it all anymore. And his first response is not, I unloaded the dishwasher. But he really listens. Because that's all we need. I'll show you a guy who's done a lot of work. Shame is an epidemic in our culture. And to get out from underneath it, to find our way back to each other, we have to understand how it affects us and how it affects the way we're parenting, the way we're working, the way we're looking at each other. Very quickly, some research by Mahalik at Boston College. He asked, what do women need to do to conform to female norms? The top answers in this country: nice, thin, modest, and use all available resources for appearance. When he asked about men, what do men in this country need to do to conform with male norms? The answers were always show emotional control, work is first, pursue status, and violence. If we're going to find our way back to each other, we have to understand and know empathy, because empathy is the antidote to shame. If you put shame in a petri dish, it needs 3 things to grow exponentially: secrecy, silence, and judgment. If you put the same amount of shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, it can't survive. The 2 most powerful words when we're in struggle: me too. And so I'll leave you with this thought. If we're going to find our way back to each other, vulnerability is going to be that path. And I know it's seductive to stand outside the arena because I think I did it my whole life and think to myself, I'm going to go in there and kick some ass when I'm bulletproof and when I'm perfect. And that is seductive. But the truth is, that never happens. And even if you got as perfect as you could and as bulletproof as you could possibly muster, when you got in there, that's not what we want to see. We want you to go in. We want to be with you and across from you. And we just want for ourselves and for the people we care about and the people we work with to dare greatly. So thank y'all very much. I really appreciate it.
So lots to unpack, lots to think about. But I think what I want our takeaway to be today is this. Dr. Brown says that there are 3 things to stop the shame spiral. One is know what your triggers are, what gets you to that place of feeling crummy about your personhood. Know what the triggers are, as opposed to feeling crummy about some action or behavior. The second thing is watch the self-talk. Talk to ourselves gently and with love, give grace. Talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you love. Sometimes I think if we talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves in our heads, we probably wouldn't have very many friends. So pay attention to the self-talk. And the third thing, and this is really, really critical, tell your story. Speak of shame with trusted people. Shame cannot survive being spoken. And that is what gets us to empathy. The only thing that can really dispel shame is experiencing empathy. Experiencing empathy from others can help us get to empathy for ourselves. And empathy is connecting with people so that we know that we're not alone. Empathy is a way to connect to the emotion another person is experiencing. It doesn't require that we have been through the same situation, but it's simply listening, holding space, withholding judgment, emotionally connecting and communicating that incredibly healing message of you are not alone. So how do we get empathy? We get empathy from telling our stories, telling our truth, hearing each other. You know, we have that impulse to fix and to rescue, but it's not that. It's being in the feelings together, as hard as that is. You know, when I went through my difficult time with my family over the summer and weeks of losing my dad and my mom having a tipping point into dementia, and I came back in August after not having my usual summer break, and the Committee on Shared Ministry and the board and I talked about it, and I shared with them what my experience had been. And do you know what they said? They said, Karen, you must be so emotionally exhausted and overwhelmed. What do you need? And I cannot tell you how healing and what a relief it was for those leaders to be able to sit with me in empathy and not go immediately to fixing or rescuing, but to hold me in my feelings during that time. So what empathy looks like and sounds like, it's not a fix, it's not deflecting because we're uncomfortable. It's rather acknowledging someone else's pain and being willing to be there with them in it. It's not easy. It's just that kind of statement. To say to somebody, with what you're going through, it makes total sense that you're feeling the way that you are. You must be exhausted and overwhelmed. I see the tough spot that you're in. I can feel the pain you feel when you talk about it. I wish you didn't have to go through this. It seems so hard. That's how we be with each other in it. Not rescuing, deflecting, fixing. I'm so sorry, I got to take this phone call. It's not that. This is important work, beloveds. We'd rather not talk about it, we'd rather not think about it, but whether we acknowledge it and recognize it or not, it shows up in our lives every single day for most of us. And so I have some homework for you for this week. I want you to try to notice, look for and notice when it is that you feel shame coming up. Try to notice when you start to feel badly or negatively about your personhood. It takes practice. The clue to awareness is how we're talking to ourselves. I am versus addressing a behavior. I'm terrified that I'm not enough. And likewise, look for true empathy happening in our world, among relationships, among friends, in our world. Pay attention to where empathy happens, real empathy, and see if you can notice the difference that it makes. May we, as human beings having a spiritual experience and spiritual beings having a human experience, may we choose to address the shame that comes up in our lives. And may we start with empathy for ourselves. Blessed be.
I will change your name. You shall no longer be called wounded, outcast, lonely or afraid. I will change your name. Your new name shall be confidence, joyfulness, overcoming one, faithfulness, friend of love, one who seeks my face.
And so we take these few moments to consider the possibility that our names, some of the things we might call ourselves, can indeed be changed to something else. And so I invite us to take a few deep breaths, come fully present to what is, And I offer this blessing from Tricia Goodwin. May you never again feel paved over, trying to grow while forced to make yourself palatable to others' sensibilities. Breathe now, eyes closed, hands pressed to sternum, and feel the truth. Feel guidance, love, the possibility of growing deeper and wider and more connected within your own being. Turn to the depths of your own heart and let her hold you, ground you, and nurture all of your secret, sacred longings until they stretch to the light, opening, unfurling, drawing strength from new roots. Bless yourself the way the earth blesses herself, with growth and abundance and seed, and dormancy and devastation and rebirth. Know how unimaginably expansive you are compared to the smallness of convention's constraints. How rooted you are in your own belovedness even when you forget. May your remembering, reconnecting, reaching into the depths of your spirit, your heart's own rich soil, nurture your becoming. And so we take these few moments for reflection, to open our hearts, to open to possibility, to allow to rise up from within those things that are held only in the deepest of places. And those who are on Zoom are welcome to record the deepest words of your hearts in the chat. And so we gather all of what is up in our hearts today. And we hold them together in the heart of love. And we offer the gesture that has become our custom, one hand on the heart, a palm extended forward, as our way of saying, you are not alone. We are all connected. Blessed be. And amen.
I will change your name. You shall no longer be called wounded, outcast, lonely, or afraid. I will change your name.
Thank you, Bill. And isn't it great to have Rosie back? Well, thank you for joining us today. And if you're looking for opportunities for spiritual development, just watch your emails. If you're not getting your emails, if you're new and you'd like to start receiving those, you can go online and fill out the card to get those. I want to continue to let you know you need to keep looking at the announcements for the Reno Posse and their needs. They are just doing a great job, and of course winter's coming, which makes it even more difficult. And I guess we have an event coming up Tuesday. Something's happening Tuesday. If you haven't already early voted or mailed your ballots, make sure you do get out and vote your values. Reverend Karen, is it okay if we invoke guilt? If we don't, if you have questions on the down ballot, I know sometimes it's hard to know who some of these folks are. Feel free to call some of us who have been around the community for a while and check in with us. I think Reverend Karen has an announcement.
I want to let you know that our beloved Bob Gaw has moved to the assisted living unit just right over here at Ranchera. And we want to help Bob be with us on Sundays. We're not looking for somebody to take every Sunday, but if different ones of you could volunteer to pick him up and bring him to church, that would be amazing. And you can contact me or the office and we can help get that set up if you're willing to do that one Sunday. So it would be wonderful if we can help Bob join us in person. 2 weeks from today, on November 20th, a couple of very special events. That is Transgender Day of Remembrance, and we will be hosting a community observance of that in the evening. I think it's at 6:30, right, Sarah? And a lot of our community congregations have been invited and are coming to join us. The choir will be singing. We have hosted this service for a number of years, and it's the first time we've been able to have it in person in a while. And so it's important to stand in solidarity with the transgender community and stand against all the violence that is perpetrated against. And so we'll have that vigil here November 20th, 2 weeks from today at 6:30. And so since that falls on the Sunday, along with that, since it is a vigil and more of a memorial in the evening, we're going to do a celebration of transness in the morning. Sarah's going to tell you a little bit more of her story. Our beloved Sarah, you're not going to want to miss that, just saying. And so 2 weeks from today, November 20th, I wanted to make sure that you are aware of that. Sometimes life feels like we are just barely able to keep our heads above water. So right now, let's be about swimming to the other side.
We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone and I'm searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it be my crime. In humility, I will listen. We're all swimming combining intuition, my head, my heart. I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me, band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share. Have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living neath the great Big Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits can live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
Beloveds, would you receive the blessing? Dear ones, when you are confronted with that which feels unbearable, shame, I am not enough, may you counter that with knowing that indeed you are. For you are a spark of perfect love in the universe. May you be showered with empathy from within and without as we are together on this healing journey. Blessed be, amen, and namaste.
Oh,